here. Welcome in, guys. This is Bash here with a CFB Analyst podcast. This one's going to be the American Athletic Conference. Their predictions, and it's just fitting. Happy 4th of July. It's just fitting that the 4th of July brings you the American Athletic Conference. So we'll get right to it, as hopefully I can do the next conference right after this. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. So let's get right into it. The East, I got UCF at 10-2, 7-1. I think they're going to take a step down. Now, I expected them to take a step down last year. They didn't. Hopefully, hold on. Did I screw that up? No. Okay. But this year, I think it's going to be a little bit different because you don't have McKenzie Milton at quarterback. You got a running back core that is crazy. The best running back core, in my opinion, and the most underrated core, by the way, in all of college football. The best in Group of Five. They have two gimmies against Florida A&M and FAU on the road. Now, FAU is not as much a gimme, but they should win that game. They host Stanford, and I think this is going to be a really good football game. I think Stanford's a solid team. UCF is no joke. I just think Stanford's a slightly better team. I got Stanford winning in Orlando, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes the other way. That's a 50-50 game to me. Same with at Pitt, but UCF dominated them last year. I think this one's going to be a lot closer. A very close game. I think they win this one. That is another toss-up. UConn at home, they should have an easy dub for the future exiters of the American Athletic. At Cincinnati, this one's more of a toss-up too. Cincinnati played UCF rather tough last year for a couple quarters, and then UCF pulled away. This one being in Cincinnati, I think Cincinnati is improved. I think UCF is slightly declining, but I still think UCF's a slightly better team, and I think they'll get this win before the bye week, and then they play ECU. And that should be another dub. At Temple, I got this for some reason, I got this little thing with Temple. I think Temple is going to be a solid team this year. I don't know what's telling me that. I think they're going to be a very, very good football team. I got this feeling about Temple that we're going to talk about the we're going to talk about the Owls a little bit more later down the line, but Isaiah Wright is back. Anthony Russo is going to try to step up. Jagger Gardner got a couple of looks last year. He's in at running back for Rykel Armstead. I do like this Temple team a little bit. They might be trending a little bit down, but this one being in Temple, I started with UCF losing this game. Then they host Houston right after that. That's a tough game there, but I think they get it done against Houston at home. They got a very potent offense. I'm not sure about their defense. At Tulsa on the road, I got them winning that game. I don't think Tulsa's really that good. Tulane, I think they're going to slightly decline, but I still think they're going to be decent. Decent in the American, though. I think UCF gets that done, and USF is going down a lot heavier than UCF is. I got them winning that game in the War on I-4 at home for UCF. The second place team I have, as you can see, is Temple. I talked about Temple. I got this little thing with them that I really like. Buffalo's going to decline. They get them out of conference. They also get Georgia Tech at home out of conference and Bucknell at home. And they get Maryland at home. So they get two Power Fives at home. I think they should win against Buffalo and Bucknell. Though Buffalo, they're going to be a hard team to predict right now, but I think they take a step down after losing Tyree Jackson and Anthony Johnson. And then Georgia Tech, another hard team to predict, as I talked about in the ACC video, is you don't know what their system's going to be. It might just not work for Georgia Tech's personnel this season. I really like Maryland. I think they lose to Maryland, and I think they win the other three. Georgia Tech's going to be a toss-up. Buffalo could possibly win that game if they aren't taken as much of a dive as I expect them to, but 3-1 out of conference is very good for Temple. with two Power 5 opponents in Maryland and Georgia Tech. Then you get at ECU. They should win that game. Memphis at home is going to be a very, very good football game. I mean, you could be walking in with a 4-1 team in Tulane Temple, and maybe the favorite in the AAC West in the preseason in Memphis. I got them winning that game at home. At SMU, though, I have them falling. That air raid system getting the best of them. SMU is not too terrible of a football team. That's not a bad loss necessarily in the American. An upset there, though, for the Mustangs. UCF at home, I have them responding with a win before a bye week. Then they go to USF. That one's a toss-up, as well as UCF. We already talked about UCF, though. USF, though, on the road, you don't know what to expect from USF, but USF could get that game. I just don't trust them really anymore. Charlie Strong had a bad year last year. Give me Temple in that ball game. Tulane at home, another one that could be close. I don't think Tulane's going to be as good. Give me Temple. And then Temple also has at Cincinnati. This game, I really don't hesitate because it's in Cincinnati. I said that Cincinnati is going to be improved. I took the Bearcats in this game, and we'll talk about the Bearcats in just a second. But, yeah, I took Cincinnati in November at Cincinnati. Both teams are going to be run heavy for sure. I think Cincinnati is going to have a little more talent. And then UConn at home, they should win that game with ease. The next game, or the next team is Cincinnati. Start off against UCLA at home. This one's a toss-up for me. They got it pretty tough out of conferences. We're going to talk about. They have to go to in a rivalry game. They go to Marshall, which Marshall was bad last year. I think they're going to be a lot better this year. But with that being said, that's still pretty tough to start off the season with the UCLA State. I don't think UCLA is going to be a bad team, but I think Cincinnati is going to be pretty good. So give me a win against UCLA, and then Ohio State on the road. That's Ohio State's easily the toughest game out of conference. That's the only reason why I don't think Cincinnati doesn't have a shot in this, because Ohio State's going to have attention to Cincinnati at that point because they don't want to lose to an in-state team for the first time since, 1920. They don't want to lose at all out of conference and jeopardize their spot in the playoffs. So even if Cincinnati is able to keep it close, Ohio State would be able to pull it out just because that is their toughest game. It is an in-state game. They're going to be focused for that one. And Miami, Florida Atlantic, if Florida Atlantic surprises people like they did a couple years back, that could give Ohio State a little bit of trouble. But frankly, Ohio State should cruise. And the same goes for Cincinnati. And then Miami, Ohio, like I said, they should win. At Marshall, they should win. But I wouldn't be surprised if they lose. They get a tough two-game stretch at home against UCF, which I said already is a 50-50, could go either way. And at Houston, I think the fact that they have to go to Houston after playing the physical game against UCF means they lose both of those. And a 3-3 start for Cincinnati, who I said was improved. Their schedule is front-heavy, though. They play Tulsa at home following that, and I think without a disappointment following those two games, they should be able to win. At ECU and UConn, they should be able to win. At USF, again, it depends on what USF does, but I think they can win that ball game. And then Temple at home, I think they're going to be a better team than Temple, but they get a rough draw out of the West. They get to go to Houston and to Memphis. That's not good. So give me Memphis in that final game. USF, the team I forgot a space for in between record and team. USF has Wisconsin, Georgia Tech, South Carolina State, and BYU at a conference. I could easily see this going 1-3 out of conference, but I think they're going to surprise BYU or Georgia Tech. I think they lose to Georgia Tech and Wisconsin. I picked BYU for a win, and South Carolina State should be a gimme. SMU at home. SMU is not too bad of a team, but I think USF can get it done there. UConn should be the guys that everyone beats up on in this conference. USF should win that game and go on a 4-game win streak after they beat BYU. But then they play Navy on the road. I think that's a tough game. Right after BYU, that game is going to be physical and close. Give me a Navy in that ball game, moving USF to 3 losses at this point now, 4-3. They play at ECU. They should win that game to go to 5-3. But then their backloaded schedule really kicks in. They play Temple at home, Cincinnati at home, Memphis at home. Now all these games are at home, and I think they will steal one of them. That one that I think they'll steal is against Memphis, because I think Memphis plays the least amount of defense, and that's really where USF is going to win one of these games, whichever one is more like a shootout. And then at UCF still is going to be the class of this conference. They should win that ball game. So 6-6 for them. And then you go to the next team, and I had UConn at 2-10. Wagner is an easy win, but then they play Illinois, Indiana, and UMass out of conference. UMass isn't going to be world beaters, but they're going to be better than UConn. UConn should fall there. Indiana and Illinois, 2 Power 5s. If they lose to Wagner week 1, I'm going to lose my crap, but they shouldn't lose to Wagner, because frankly, Wagner's not even a decent FCS school. I also got them playing ECU at home and beating them. I think their offense is good enough to win that game, but I wouldn't be surprised if they lose that and fall to winless in conference. Every other game at USF or UCF, USF at Tulane, Houston at home at UMass, Navy at Cincinnati. All these games at Temple, they should lose. And frankly, if they can beat ECU, it's still a success, I guess. ECU has NC State on the road, Gardner-Webb, William and Mary, and at Old Dominion. And for some reason, I got this feeling that the William and Mary game is going to be the upset from FCS to Group of 5. I have to pick FCS beating a Group 5 at least once, and William and Mary's that team. Gardner-Webb's not. I got them winning that game against Gardner-Webb, losing to Old Dominion, losing to NC State, and losing to William and Mary. And the only conference game I have them winning is Tulsa. They draw out of the West, SMU on the road and Navy on the road. I don't know what's with these road games. Oh, wait. They probably have a second. Do these guys have a second? Yeah, because there's only 6, so they would have 3 games to cross. Oh, Tulsa at home. Okay. Yeah, Tulsa at home to end the season. That's their one win. I think they're playing with pride in that ball game. Tulsa's down. Give me ECU to win that game. All right. Now to the other side of the division, and the first team up is Houston. Now notice how they got 7-5. Hold on. It didn't go through. Oh, spoiler alert. Oh my gosh, another spoiler alert. Well, you'll see that. But, well, that's not a spoiler alert. That's from last year's predictions, so I'm not going to worry about that. And that's not even going to be the next video, too. The next video is going to be the Big 10. Wait, no. Big 10 or Big 12? Big 12. I got my stuff out of order. We'll go ahead and recap what I predicted last year, but they do have a tough out-of-conference. Houston does. They play at North Texas, which is going to be pretty good. Mason Fine is back. They got a pretty decent defense. Their offense is going to be potent. They play at Oklahoma and versus Washington State. Washington State, I'm not going to make the same mistake as I did a year ago. They're going to be back to at least decent, if not really good, because I thought they would be bad last year. And they turned out to be a pretty worthy team, Washington State. And then Oklahoma on the road, I wouldn't be surprised if Houston surprises Oklahoma, but frankly, if Houston surprises Oklahoma, a lot of these games that they have L's in my predictions, they should have a check mark in that left column for a W. But even if they keep it close, honestly. But they should lose against Oklahoma. They should lose against Washington State. North Texas is a 50-50 to me. I think North Texas is a good team, and North Texas wins that game. They play Tulane in the middle of this. Also, they have Prairie View A&M. They should dominate that game. But Tulane on the road, I think just because it's in between Washington State, on the heels of Oklahoma, and at North Texas the following week, they lose in somewhat of a trap game there and start off the season before their first bye week 1-4. I think that's a real possibility. But then they get Cincinnati at home after the bye week, and I think they get that win out off a bye. Cincinnati's after UCF. Yeah, give me Houston in that ball game. At UConn, they should win. SMU at home, they should win. But again, I said SMU is not that bad of a team. Wouldn't be surprised if it goes the other way. But frankly, I think SMU doesn't play enough defense. And at UCF, I think they lose that game, but that's the only game I have them losing in the back half of the season as they play Memphis at home. I think they win that game in a crucial game in Houston. At Tulsa, I think they win that game as Tulsa I don't expect much of. And Navy, I think Navy's going to be a decent team, nothing great. I think they should win that ball game at home. The next team up is Memphis at 9-3. I got them losing 3 games in conference. Now their out of conference is very, very doable. They have UL Monroe on the road, South Alabama, and Southern. They should win all 3 of those games. Ole Miss is going to be a toss-up, but I think they will win that game, and I think they easily could. They have to go to Temple after UL Monroe, and that is a toss-up 50-50. I gave it to the home team in Philly, though I might flip that. If I flip that, by the way, that will change a lot in the East. Tulane at Tulsa, SMU, all those should be wins. The 2 tougher of these 3 are at home, and at Tulsa, I don't think much of Tulsa. At Houston, I have them losing that. Again, it's off of a Houston bye. It's also off of a Memphis bye. So really even playing field. The offense is going to be very good for Houston. Defense has a lot of question marks under Dana Holgorsen. They have to go to USF too. I think they lose that ball game on the heels of Houston after a track meet, essentially. And then they play Cincinnati at home. I think they win that game with a lot of pride. Memphis is a very good football team, and it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if they go 11-1 or 10-2. But frankly, and only lose 1 game in conference. But frankly, I just don't see it with how their schedule sets up. The cross is pretty decently tough. They have to go to USF, which I wouldn't want to go to USF if you got to play Cincinnati as well, and you got to play against Temple on the road. So, yeah, I got Memphis losing 2 out of the 3 games in the cross conference and losing the most important game in division, which is Houston on the road. They really get a tough stretch with at Temple versus Cincinnati, at USF, at Houston, and I think they could only win 1 of those 4 games, maybe 2. Frankly, it wouldn't surprise me if they won 3 of the 4. I don't think they can go undefeated through that stretch, though. Navy is the next team at 7-5, 5-3 in conference. Now they got Holy Cross and Eastern Carolina. They should win both those games. Air Force, they should win, but you can never tell with those rivalries. They also got Army later on, and I think they should lose that game. Army seems to be a better team as of late. They got Navy's number. Navy had their number for the longest time, and now it's Army's turn. At Memphis to start conference play, though, after 2 bye weeks. I still think Memphis, just because they're a better team, will win that ball game, knocking the Midshipmen to 2-1 at that point. At Tulsa, I think Tulsa upsets them. They're coming off the heels of an emotional win against a rival in Air Force, and I think they lose that game, but they get a 3-game skid where they have USF, Tulane, and at UConn. USF and Tulane at home. They should be able to win. Tulane is trying to replicate a triple option out of the spread. I think that Navy sees a similar style in practice. They'll be able to stop it. And USF, I think they can. I don't think USF's going to be able to stop the triple option. At UConn, they should also win that easily. They play at Notre Dame. Oh, yeah, they wait. Huh? Oh, ECU's in conference. Duh. Okay. Notre Dame's a fourth conference out of conference game. At Notre Dame, they should lose that one handily. SMU at home, I think they will win that ball game, but then they go to Houston the final week of the season. I really don't think they got much of a shot in that ball game. Still 7-5 for them is very appropriate. SMU's next team at 4-4 in conference. They play at Arkansas State. I think Arkansas State is going to get that done. North Texas at home. North Texas, I already said, was a pretty good team. I think North Texas is going to win that ball game. At TCU, they should lose that game if TCU somehow loses that after beating them last year. In their place, in SMU's place by a wide margin, I don't think SMU stands much of a chance. And then Texas State, they should win. With all regards to Group of Five, this is a pretty tough out of conference for an average Group of Five team playing against Arkansas State, who's been a class act in the Group of Five as of late. North Texas, who has risen since for the last couple years, looked very good, and then at TCU, a Power Five opponent, that's usually pretty good. They shouldn't win any of those 3 games. North Texas maybe at home. I don't really see Arkansas State. Texas State, they should win. Texas State's not good. It's that simple. Next up is Tulsa at home right before bye week, I think. Well, okay, USF. Sorry, I skipped USF. USF at home. I think they lose after TCU let down 1-4 start, but then they beat Tulsa to go 2-4, and then a bye week, and then Temple at home. I think they win that ball game off a bye week. Temple's coming right out after an emotional win against Memphis. Give me SMU in an upset. Then at Houston, at Memphis, that's a tough 2-game skid. I think they lose both those games, but they get to return back at home against ECU before a bye week. They get a bye week, and then they have to go to Navy. I think Navy's triple option, though, is going to be hard to prepare for SMU's defense. So I got Navy winning that ball game. And then Tulane, I think they win that one at home. Speaking of the Green Wave of Tulane, they're my next team. They have FIU at Auburn, Missouri State, and at Army. And again, that's a pretty tough schedule for Tulane to navigate. They could beat FIU, but I think FIU is going to be a pretty decent Group of Five team, pretty good Group of Five team. Army is going to be legit. And Auburn, there's no way that they should win that ball game at Auburn. Missouri State, they should win, though, and get one win at least out of conference. Houston, I have them beating that option offense, and it's kind of all about matchups. I don't think Houston's going to be able to win in a shootout against Tulane because Tulane's going to be holding the ball for so long that they're going to be able to have plenty of time to adjust defensively to what Houston's doing versus Houston's going to be on the field a lot. So give me Tulane in an upset there to go 2-2 at that point after Army 2-3. They play UConn at home. I think they win that game to go 3-3 at an even 500, but the back half of the schedule is still pretty brutal. They go to Memphis and to Navy in back-to-back weeks, and just because this is back-to-back weeks, I think that Navy gets their number, and Memphis is a better team. Memphis also gets Tulane. All of a sudden, you're looking at what now? 5 losses, I think it is at this point. 3-5. Tulsa wins 4-5, or win against Tulsa 4-5. They got to go to Temple, play UCF, and at SMU. At SMU being on the back end, that's the most winnable game in my opinion. I don't think that's a good thing. So I think they lose all 3 and finish 4-8. 2-10 Tulsa. They play at San Jose State. I think San Jose State is worse than them, but frankly, they should lose to Wyoming. Oklahoma State and Michigan State, they shouldn't have a chance against. And then SMU on the road tough, even though it's right off of a bye. SMU is not right off of a bye; they're right off of USF. I think they get it done though. SMU does, but then against the Navy, I think Tulsa is going to surprise Navy because Navy's still not that talented, and I think there's going to be a couple games where Navy is going to struggle, and I think this is one of those games. Then they go to Cincinnati and against Memphis, and to Tulane, and then UCF. 4-game skid there. I already said what I think about all those games. Houston and at ECU, just because ECU is the final game, and Houston's right before that in their team getting down in the second half of the season. I mean, the second half of their schedule going 0-6. I think they lose to ECU to go 2-10 and 1-7 in conference. Now, how did I do with these predictions a year ago? Well, I didn't predict them a year ago. That is, I didn't predict their schedules. I remember I did have UCF going 10-2. They went undefeated again. I think they went 13-0. I don't think they had a cancellation last year. But with that being said, I can't remember who I had them beating in the other side of the division because they ended up playing Memphis again, maybe. Well, let's. So what happened last year? Yeah, they played against Memphis last year again. I thought it was going to be Houston. Um, Houston let me down a little bit. Now, there was a 3-way tie at the top of the conference with Tulane, Houston, and Memphis, but Tulane, I think, lost to both of those. So it was between Houston and Memphis got the head-to-head. UCF went 8-0 in conference. Temple was 7-1 in conference. I didn't even realize that. Ooh, they were good. Now I'm doubting it because I don't think they can replicate that success. Cincinnati, I think, can replicate success. They only had 2 losses last year. They went 10-2. I didn't see that coming at all. I thought USF was going to be better for sure. ECU and UConn I saw as the bottom. Tulsa I saw at the bottom. Navy I didn't. Navy's collapse was surprising to me. SMU, about what I expected. I expected them to make a bowl game, I think, but they didn't. Tulane, I expected to make it 6-6. That's what they did, if I recall correctly. So, and Memphis and Houston, I expect to win more than 8 games, but still not that bad, to be honest with you. So, my champion, as you guys got spoiled, was UCF. UCF is still the class of this conference, I think, for at least another year, and we'll go ahead and take it year by year. I think Houston might be that next class of the conference. They haven't won the American since Tom Herman's first year. UCF is that team to beat now, and I think that will stand. They won their 3rd straight AAC title, and we'll see if Mackenzie Milton can come back fully healthy, if they can hold on to that title and win 4 in a row. We'll see what all comes back to. I know they're still going to have good running backs at UCF following this season, but I think that defense is going to decline and decline. I don't trust Josh Heupel specifically on the defensive side of the ball. You also got Brandon Wimbush, who is a grad transfer this year. I don't know how much I trust him, but if there's a guy that could beat Stanford for UCF, that if Mackenzie Milton is hurt and there's a guy that could beat Stanford, it's certainly not Mac. Wimbush, I believe, has done it before. I think so, at least when he was at Notre Dame. Stanford's going to be that game that is going to dictate whether or not UCF is going to be legitimately talked about. Because, guys, Group of 5 is going to rise. I mean, Army's, I think, in the eyes of the New Year Six, is going to be considered Group of 5 as an independent. Wouldn't that be a nice loophole, by the way, for the College Football Playoff Committee, is if you go ahead and you claim independence as group of five, quote unquote. So that way, if you can't find a good group of five, then you can rank Notre Dame. You can put Notre Dame in, or have a Notre Dame rule where Notre Dame, if there are no viable options in the top 25 for group of five, because there have been years like that, not too often, but there have been, then Notre Dame would get that bid if they're ranked. I don't know, but if Army's considered a group of five, they could get that bid. Utah State could get that bid. We'll talk about them in the future. Big 12, I might just do that right after this or in a bit. But thank you guys for tuning in for the American Athletic Conference. I'll catch you guys next time.